This is Sunday Edition with Anthony Corona, part of the Sunday Edition family of podcasts and digital media content services. Let's dive right into today's episode. Welcome to Sunday Edition with Anthony Corona. I am said host, Anthony Corona, and I am very happy to be here with you. We did some updating on anthonycorona.com. So if you get a chance, go check out the website, and you can preview our 3 new shows that are coming up, including Sip and Learn Wines Around the World with Gabriel, which is dropping in 2 weeks through the Sunday Edition family of podcasts and digital media content services. And I am very, very, very happy to welcome Danielle to Sunday Edition. So Danielle, why don't you spend the next couple minutes telling us a little about yourself, where you're from, and your journey with vision loss/blindness.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthony. So thanks for having me on this show. It's a very prolific podcast. I'm very grateful to be a part of everything today, and thank you for giving a voice to all of us. It's really so important. And so yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Danielle. I live in Missouri, in Kansas City, more specifically with my husband Brian. And I am totally blind, have been since birth. I've never seen anything. Both of my eyes are artificial. And yeah.
You have had an interesting journey, though. I think creatives often experiment and find themselves. I can do so much that I can't put my finger on what I actually want to do. So talk to us a little bit about the different roles you've experimented with and played with through your journey so far.
Well, it's really interesting that so the music thing started for me at the very beginning. I always sang as a child. I was always interested in music. I love music. Music is like the oxygen for me, and so I went through sort of college, and I majored in Spanish and I minored in French, and I love languages. But when I was 20, I met someone who happened to be teaching voice at the school at the college that I attended. And so that kind of led me, it was an elective at first, something that I just kind of chose to take because I needed something else to sort of fill up my schedule. And so I knew I could sing, but it was kind of classical training was not something I had ever envisioned for myself early on. And so we started taking lessons. She started giving me lessons, and so a year or two went by, and this kind of more mature, maybe a little bit operatic mezzo soprano voice was kind of born from this training that I had early on. And so I mean, it really didn't amount to very much. I did a couple of local recitals in my area. Of course I paid for them myself. It was all sort of a hobby, a very glorified hobby, if you will, very expensive now that I think about it, but very much worth it. And so there was talk at the end of course, of our 2 or 3 years together of considering conservatory. And I don't believe, now looking back on it, I don't believe that should have ever been something that was talked about, because a musician that is at the conservatorial level is completely different than somebody who is just going to have a voice and who can sing for a couple of evenings a year, or what have you. And so but we went ahead, and I didn't have any skills as a musician, none at all. I couldn't tell you what the circle of fifths was. I still can't. I still cannot tell you what a diminished chord is. I would not be able. I can probably sing an A. I mean, I have some relative pitch, stuff, but just like really unqualified for the conservatory. But of course, when we're young, we want to, we get excited about these things. We get excited about, the possibilities and the fact that we were offered auditions. And I mean, I had four or five different auditions at very great schools. I actually had a Juilliard audition when I went back in 2011. And, the voice was fabulous, but the voice is only one thing. If I couldn't stress that enough, that would be one thing, because you have to be able to act. You have to be able to, have a stage presence. You have to be able to know what music is and how to read it. And, Braille music is a whole different ball of wax that I was just never ready for. And so I walked into the Juilliard school, and I had this lovely pianist, a French pianist. I won't say her name, but she was really lovely, just for, um, but she was really lovely. And she just like she helped me, kind of play for the audition. And then I went in to do like some kind of theory testing. Okay, and this is like a very stuffy, very old room with like these, like people that were way more qualified than I was to be there. And this man, he was very proper too. He said, "Oh, well, thank you for being here." And then he said, "Dear Kayla," or Miss Kayla, or whatever he said, however he did it. And he said, "Which of these chords is a diminished chord? If I play for you, I'm going to play three things, and I want you to pick out this diminished chord. I want you to tell me what when you hear it." And there were a few other people, I think like staff maybe in the room or something. And so he plays these three chords, and I'm like, uh, well, well, sir, I'm sorry, I don't know. And so So it was an experience. It was a very, very wonderful experience. And it was a very expensive experience. And I think, you know what, like, and somebody even told me, like, and so then they, of course, they mailed their rejection letter back in a few weeks. I still have it. I mean, it's still fine. But so, so that's not really the road that we should have gone down, maybe, as a singer that doesn't have a lot of that experience. And so but I still loved music. And for a long time, I ended up in these different kinds of jobs, like call center jobs. Like, I worked for a time for the Internal Revenue Service, and um, I worked, for a time at like an insurance company, and worked at like as a quality analyst for call monitoring. And like it just really got to be like I'm really not somebody that always does very well with other people's energy, and that's very difficult. And being kind of an empath and codependent and things like at the same time really kind of messes with your nervous system. And so um, it was actually, after discovering, because one day I woke up in 2024. So, I've been kind of working these jobs and things after the rejection. I threw music away for a long time, and I never wanted to sing again, and I was just mad and and so, but but back in 2020, at the end of 2024, I woke up one day, and my computer system that I was using for farmers, the soft phone system more accurately, would not read the soft phone buttons at all, period. And it didn't matter. Like the IT people at the insurance company were very amazing. They gave me NVDA, they gave me JAWS. They did everything they could do. It would not read. And I don't have like scripting knowledge. Um, Anything like that to make that work. Okay. So I was really, really disappointed. And because like I am the someone who like when I turned 24, I could not find any jobs in my local area. Okay. So I was like if I have to move, I'm gonna move all the way across the world. I don't care what it takes. I'm like I'm packing my bags and this is it, and I'm gonna be employed. And so, like I was just very determined not to be unemployed because it's like people would remind me 70% of us are unemployed, and I mean it's
Yep.
true. It's true. I'm not mad at those people. I just think that it's there's this pressure to be employed because you don't want to be like the other 70% that don't have a job. And so I after discovering that, and then they sort of messed up, like they made it into a company where you have to take calls faster and faster and faster and faster and faster faster you got to get to, come on, 10 minutes per call, like there was just this limit that
Yeah.
was put on us. And I mean, I couldn't do it. Like with all of the things, I mean, I was very good. And I could take like probably a 15-minute call. Like that was okay. But to make it, and then they would do this thing like, well, you know what, you're last on the team, these metric things where you have to sort of, meet the metrics, and I didn't. And so I let the job go, and I had to, just for my own mental stability and sanity. It was just getting to be outrageous, and so and a lot of people kind of balked at that decision. Well, how dare you, if you know you know and so that's when I found Suno, which is like a piece of like an app. It's a phone app, and it's something that also operates on the computer that allows you to create AI music. Now, I can still sing. So Suno is something that can work in partnership with the music that I create. I have to be the one that gives it the ideas. Most of the time, if the vocals are female, I'm sampled in them, meaning I have to sing what I want it to sound like, and then, upload it to the app, or I can sing directly into the app if I want. Those things have to be in place before something can just be, that I would create, can just be created. Um, and right after I got done with Farmers, I just, when I found out about Suno, I thought, I don't know about this. This really is like, it kind of, you know, because I can still sing and I karaokeed and I would sing some songs here and there. I kind of felt like, well, it's not really me, and this isn't going to really work, and you know, but I picked it up just to see. Just for, shizzes and giggles, to see if it would do anything, worthwhile. And so one of the first songs I created with Suno was, it's called Go Ahead and Call Geico. And it's just, and but because I was just so disheartened by all of the people we had to turn away. Well, we're sorry we can't cover that. Well, if we covered that last year, we can't do it this year. Sorry, and so it just got to be really heavy. And so I created this song, and then you know I rediscovered my love of languages, and especially with French, and kind of creating these different love songs, and these different R&B songs with Suno. And it just really kind of gave me inspiration to really try to express my feelings, through music. And really, because when I was working, I was, a firm believer in therapy. And then when I stopped working, I couldn't afford the therapy anymore because the sessions, doubled because of the insurance issues. And so,
Mhm.
and so I'm like, well, we're going to have to kind of create our own therapy. And, you know, at about that time, so I had been a closet bisexual for a long time. Probably since I was like 14. That was when I first had my crush on a girl. And so the journey, being able to kind of write these French love songs, and even these dramas, was to try and express 20 years worth of repression of that part of me. And I'll just say, like, it's something, uh, um it's something very very painful. It's a different kind of pain, having to kind of wear a mask or not really express yourself, or the way you feel about someone.
Compartmentalize and yeah,
Yes.
and drip out to this piece of your life and to that piece and to have separate parts of who you are. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's been an exploration process, and just really trying to be okay with this part of myself. A lot of people that were around me, I mean, really, I would say they really are afraid of difference, in any kind of difference, blindness, being bisexuality. Those kinds of things are not quote unquote normal to them, and so they just, I'm not really sure that they, reacted so much out of like hatred, but I think it was just that they just didn't quite know how to handle these different facets of me. And a lot of people are still, still very much in love with the straight me, which is interesting, and it's hard at the same time because not everybody can go with you on your journey where you are, and
Yes.
and and when as it evolves, sometimes you lose people, and that's just what happens.
I'm wondering if the experience of coming to terms with, this is from what I heard was this is soul sucking, and all the effort to do this as a job, but it's not feeding me. In fact,
Hmm.
it's actually taking from me. And I'm wondering if, once you cleared the hurdle of giving yourself the permission to not only feel it, but then to act on it, did that open the doors to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna let some more of this out. And I'm more than I thought I was. I'm stronger than I thought I was. So let's
Hmm.
little by little unpack the rest of this storage room, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll have to tell you, it was so interesting because the audio dramas portion of it, I mean, honestly, that's not something I set out to do. I've always been a huge fan of the BBC, and I've always been a huge fan of like The Archers and those types of dramas. And so, but I never had a chance to really think about producing them. And then one day I was doing a French song, and this is the Alan and Andre album that I was working on, and I ended up making I'm really big on intros, like intros to songs, like especially if they have like a symphonic intro, or like a couple of different
Crescendo kind of
sound,
building.
well, yeah, a
Yeah.
couple of sound effects or whatnot. And then I told myself, I'm like, Danielle, this is music, this is not an audio drama. You can't, if I mean, if you're going to put this on Spotify, I mean, people are going to be expecting music. They're not going to be expecting like 2 minutes of walking back and forth and all these different things. And so I thought, well, and that's when I got the inspiration to do the audio dramas. And when I first started out, it was really, really difficult because I'm not a mixer, and I mean I use Gold Wave, which most people are like, well, that's only a one track mixer, and it's not like Reaper, and we can do better with Audacity, and I'm sure that people can. It's just that for me and what I'm trying to do, Gold Wave really works best because I'm kind of an audio dummy. Like I have to play things and you know remix sometimes because things get a little bit distorted, or there's too much reverb or something. It has to be perfect for me, and so I really do pay attention to that, and so I started, I do have help, from Grok and Chat GPT some of the time. Sometimes I start with an image, and I create a story based on that image. Um, And that's kind of how Under Candlelight came about, because that the play Under Candlelight that we'll hopefully hear if I would stop talking. But that's how that came about, was two men at a table with their wives, and there's a candle on the table, and they're sort of looking at each other very intensely, and that's how that came about.
We're gonna go to that
Sure.
in a minute or two, but I kind of I wanna take this to the like for dummies
Yeah, of
stage of
course.
things, because I think if you haven't played around with any AI, there's a lot of misconceptions and probably a lot of fear about,
Hmm.
but the misconceptions are what I'm most interested at the moment. Some people think, you type a paragraph worth of stuff in and you come out with this, fully complete, amazing, a representation of what you hear and feel in your head. Um, can you? I'm dying to say, can you share your process? But for every project,
Sure.
it's different, and I do understand that. But can you kind of give the lay of us, the layman amongst us, sitting down for the first time, putting some prompts in, you get a little bit disappointed. It isn't the big symphony that you experience that you imagined in your head.
No, it's not.
Give us a little bit of what the process looks like for you. Um, Going for a like a five, we're gonna hear a 5 minute clip of something. Going for like a 5 minute project. What does it start, and how much before you throw up your hands and say this is as close to what I
Oh
wanted?
goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and it does take a long time. And sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, just so we're clear, like on the prompting part, sometimes it doesn't matter how much you prompt Suno, how much you prompt ChatGPT, how much you prompt Grok. If, sometimes there just isn't, it just doesn't come up with what you want. And so you have to try different ways. Sometimes like right now, one of the things that I'm trying to do is turn some of the versions of songs that I have into symphonic versions. And
Mm.
so sometimes it just does not like it. And so what I've had to do is, there's a feature in Suno where you can upload your own audio, like your own voice, your own file, your own work, per se, and you can cover it, and it's not always successful, but sometimes, like if you're trying to get it to do a symphonic version of something, sometimes it helps to either have the original song, or a lot of times what I'll do is use like voice memos or recording software on my computer to record me singing, and then I take that voice and then upload it into the Suno website. Most of this stuff is easier on the computer. I'll be honest about that. You can still do it on the phone, but it's a lot more cumbersome in my opinion. And sometimes you still have to, kind of refine. Like a lot of times I don't want drums like with my symphony, and so, sometimes you have to explain explicitly that you don't want any drums, and sometimes it'll still give you drums, and so you have to sometimes come up with different ways of putting things, like for symphonically, like one of the things I'll say is, like in the prompt box, sophisticated film score, and then that will open up the orchestral side to make it more full, or have, like piano and strings as well, and not have drums.
So when you're starting with something like a full, sheet of lyrics that you've written, and you start feeding that in, where do you go next? Do you start to build like, okay, this is I'm thinking ragtime, and I want it to sound like Little House on the Prairie from 1875, or what, when you're approaching building it from scratch, how do you get it to start recognizing what you're hearing in your mind?
Yes, and that's all about the prompt box. And it's also if you are, if you do start with something brand new, like the lyrics, for example, you would paste the lyrics in that you've written, and then what you'll do is like if you imagine like instrumental bridges, or if you imagine there being maybe let's say like some lush harmonies in a place where you want the chorus to be fuller. Sorry, more full. Oh my goodness. I can't talk today. Um, so you would, and all of that stuff is written in text, um and it's kind of trial and error. I mean, if you want something like a small orchestra without drums and you say that and it still doesn't give it to you, then you have to keep trying. And um sometimes it's taken me like 50 tries to get the perfect sound that I'm looking for, that I'm imagining in my head. And it's all about the text you put in or don't put in the prompt box. And I mean, I'm going to be quite honest. Like sometimes if it stumps me, I'll use Chat GPT and I'll ask it. Hey, do you have any suggestions on what I can tell Suno to stop it from putting crap in my my fruit salad of a symphony I'm trying to make. I mean, it really is. It really does take some doing, and it's yeah.
It is something that I am very glad is there, and I have played around with. I've created a few successful, as close to I think as I'm going to get to the sound in my head. Um, for me, it's not my passion.
Hmm.
So I get frustrated. And what I found was I'm asking it to do a minor tweak, and what it comes back with is so different than what I was thinking, and or the last version it gave me. And I'm like, how did you possibly? I hadn't thought to go to ChatGPT and ask their advice. There's one that I kind of gave up on that I'm thinking I will play around more with by asking ChatGPT. This is what I hear in my head. How do I get it to do this? And see if that works any better. But the point, or basically where I'm leading us through, is I really do believe personally that this is work. This is creation. It is utilizing a full set of tools. If
Yes.
a film composer wants to actually have their product on a finished film, that one person is not going to play 36 instruments, do all of the mixing, the layering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
Hmm.
so rather than conducting a bunch of people and or taking the part from the trumpets and the part from the violinists and mixing it
Hmm.
and layering it, it's like an all-encompass Swiss Army toolbox kind of thing, but it's
Yes.
still work.
It is. It is. And the thing is too, and I will say this just while we're talking about this. Sorry to I hope I didn't interrupt you.
No, go
um
ahead.
but I just want to say you can't be I mean, okay, how do I want to say this? So you can't rely on ChatGPT and Grok and these other tools completely. Okay? Like if for instance, like when I have this new British drama that I'm kind of working on right now. And one of the parts that I came up with was like I wanted two people to have a conversation at a dinner table, and I wanted there to be a dowager, like a countess, at the table.
Ooh.
Now, now, okay, and that's fine. But when I said to chat or to Grok, I said, well, we need to make this conversation an austere one about the duties, about carrying the duty. We need to make sure that, like she's being the but I didn't say she. I didn't. And so and back in the now it doesn't maybe it's not really about that for me, but back in the time period like that we're talking about, a dowager is a widowed female with property there that has property with her husband, that kind of that gets dowried down from to her, from her home to the marriage and all that good stuff. Now, it didn't catch that. It didn't catch that. And so if I wouldn't have, like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I don't think that, because I've watched a lot of British fiction, nonfiction stuff, and Downton Abbey and these different things. And so I happen to know that a dowager is, in that time at least, is not a man. And so, it just, when I caught it, and I actually said to it, I'm like, well, you know what, you're wrong, because this isn't how this should be, is it? And they said, oh, good catch, you're right. So see, it's really like, you really still have to do your research, because even though these are dramas made with AI, like, people are still, pretty critical when it comes to the content. And if something is off, especially something like that, and especially if you're in a historically significant, like, time period, then you really do have to be like the scholar, and really make sure that the stuff you get back is actually, relevant to the time period and to what's happening, especially if it's like takes place in Surrey or Great Britain somewhere.
Yeah, and especially, different ways, different ways of using the language. The same phrase could mean something completely different in various places
Yeah.
within the same
Hmm.
story. Within higher society versus, you know,
Hmm.
yeah. So let's go to which of the dramas, we have two that we're going to hear today. Which one do you want Herbie to play first?
Okay, so let me just so the voices from these dramas are from 11 Labs. Sorry, I'm just disclaiming.
No, no,
Um
I was going to ask you what yeah.
and oh, good. Okay, I'll wait. Okay. No, sorry. So I would say Under Candlelight, if it's possible. This is a drama about two gay men in 1950s France.
All right, so Herbie, hold 1 second. So lead us into, um, set the atmosphere of what we're going to hear, and then on the other side, I want to ask you a little bit about, the rights, responsibilities, how these models were trained, and ethically speaking, where you fall. And full disclaimer, it's only one person's opinion. But first, give us the atmosphere. What are we about to hear? Set the scene for us.
Well, so Under Candlelight is a play that takes place in 1950s France. Okay, it's in Paris, and so what happened is, and if you know anything about 1950s France, it was illegal to be gay in 1950s
Hmm.
France. It was not acceptable, and so when I found that out, my heart kind of broke. That really bothered me, and it really kind of affected me in a and I just anyway, so that's how this drama was born. And so what we're doing is we are um so Andre and Alan are two people that have been in love for a long time. They've also been married for a long time, and they have wives, they have children, they have responsibilities, and nobody would ever accept the outcome. So they have to pretty much keep everything a secret. And I don't want to spoil it, but that's the basis of it.
All right, roll it, Herbie.
The dinner had been planned weeks in advance. A gathering of old friends, partners, colleagues. The kind of evening where everything looks perfect on the surface. Polished silverware, laughter bubbling through the air. A string quartet murmuring in the corner. Alain sat opposite Andre. Between them, a single candle trembled, its flame stretching and shrinking with every breath, every laugh, every hesitation that filled the room. To anyone else, they were simply two men in suits, exchanging polite conversation across the table. But in that narrow space between the candle and their glances lived a secret neither dared to speak aloud. Andre's wife was telling a story, something about a trip to Lyon. Alain's hand rested near his wine glass, his fingers tracing the stem slowly, rhythmically, as if he were counting heartbeats. He nodded at her words, but his eyes, those careful, intelligent eyes, never left Andre's. Andre smiled back, the smallest curve of a mouth trained to remain neutral. The kind of smile that could pass unnoticed by the rest of the world, yet set something ablaze between them. Oh yes, that's when I met him. He was outside in front of a grand building at night. His face was pointed skyward. He had a cigarette between his lips. That handsome face, those lips, I shall never forget them. He seemed happy but terribly sad all at once. It had started months ago, perhaps even years before either of them could admit it. A moment after work, a shared cigarette on a rainy street, a silence that felt like confession, and then, as always, retreat. Now under the golden light of the dining room, surrounded by laughter and crystal, everything felt unbearable. The candle flickered again, and in that trembling light, they both seemed to waver. Two men trapped between what they wanted and what the world allowed them to have. The dinner went on. Toasts were made. Glasses chimed. Andre's wife touched his arm. Alain looked away. But just before the dessert was served, their eyes met one last time. A long, wordless exchange, heavy with everything that would never be said. When the candle finally died out, so did the moment. Yet somewhere, in the quiet between their lives, the echo of that flame still burned. Their eyes met, and the air between them thickened, like honey and smoke. "You shouldn't have come," Andre whispered. "I already did," Alain replied softly. And that was the end of pretending. The distance between them disappeared. Andre reached out first, his hand trembling before it found the side of Alain's face. It was a touch heavy with restraint, not lust, but the ache of everything forbidden. Alain leaned into it, closing his eyes as if that single gesture might save him from the world. Paris some years later. The years had settled around Andre like dust on old books, soft, inevitable. He had learned how to smile in public again, how to talk about the weather and politics without feeling the ground shift beneath him. But some mornings, when the light entered his study just so pale and tender, like that first dawn they once shared, he felt the ache return. It was a quiet day in March when he found the letters. He had been sorting through a drawer of old correspondence, tax forms, invitations, theater programs. Beneath them all lay a small bundle tied with a silk ribbon. The paper had yellowed at the edges, but the handwriting, Alain's, was unmistakable. He sat down slowly, heart pounding. The letters were never sent. Andre, tonight. The city feels like glass, fragile, reflecting too much. I walked by the river again, the same bench, the same lamplight. I almost expected to see you there. Do you ever pass by that place and wonder if the air still remembers us? Andre traced the words with his thumb. There were 4 letters in all, written over years, each one beginning with restraint and ending in confession. In one, Alain spoke of a new posting in Brussels, how he kept pretending he had chosen it for career reasons. In another, he described a dream, a dinner, the candle burning, Andre's voice calling his name before the flame went out. And the last letter, written just 2 years before Alain's death, was the simplest. If there is a heaven, I hope it looks like that night by the river. Nothing grand. Just us, walking, pretending not to love each other. Andre folded the papers carefully and placed them back inside the drawer. He didn't cry. He only sat there, surrounded by silence. The same silence that had always been theirs. Later that evening, he walked down to the Seine. The river was still there, dark and slow, reflecting the city's new lights. He stood by the same stone railing, hands in his pockets, and whispered, "Bonsoir, mon ami." The wind stirred as if in reply, and for the first time in years, Andre smiled without sadness.
I have to tell you, the atmosphere is so well established, and you just feel immersed. I absolutely love the line "settling like dust on old book jackets."
Yes.
It was so visceral. Every one of us can remember picking up a book from a shelf that had been there for months or years, and feeling that coat, and drawing your finger through it. Wow,
Mhm.
really, really well done. So, on the other side of it, what else do you want us to know about that specific piece? And tell us a little bit about how long that piece took to get to the place where you were ready for others to hear it.
Oh my goodness. Well, so a little bit more about that. So I think it's really hard. One of the things that really struck me when writing this piece, and it's kind of emotional, I'll be honest, but one of the things that really kind of drove this whole bus forward was what we would all do if we didn't do everything out of fear.
Mm.
Because that's very important. And it's just so different. Sometimes the things that we would or wouldn't do if we weren't afraid. What would you do if you weren't afraid? It's like that thing. But for whatever reason, whether it's convention or it's duty or it's something that we feel like from our families that we feel like it's passed down and in our nature to be to have to do. Sometimes that can overshadow really everything that we really want in life. And so I think that's, and it's kind of autobiographical in a way. Like I haven't gotten to the two women yet, but like that's one thing. All these stories have I think little sprinkles of our soul or of my soul in them in some degree and to some degree. And I think I love being able to take experiences and weave it into the art that I produce, the things that I create. Um, so yeah, and oh my goodness, as far as release, that um so I probably started with the text. So the text is what I start with first. And sometimes I have help from ChatGPT or Grok or somewhere as far as a prompt goes, but most of the time I'm just, I make an outline, kind of start with like 10 chapters or something and just see kind of where it goes, what I want discussed in every chapter, and then go back and write it. So from the time of, I would say, from everything from like just starting with the idea to releasing it, I would say, oh my goodness, I want to say like 8 to 10 months, somewhere around that time frame. And even now, I mean, see, the thing is, the process
You just heard a
evolves.
couple of things that you tweaked, didn't you?
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
process evolves because the thing is, I really didn't, before I really just, there are things I just didn't know. I just recently discovered a new website for sound effects, which I think it's called Pond 5, Pond 5, and it's you can there are sound effects that you pay for, but to do this under Candlelight, I used a website called Pixabay, that has
Mm.
royalty free sound
Yeah.
effects on it. And then also some birds from my backyard.
Awesome.
So love the birdies.
And that is the jambalaya of creating art. A little bit from here and a little bit from there, and a sound or something will catch you that oh, I know exactly how I can use this and bring out something else or bring something out in it by using it
Yes.
in a specific space. All right, let's pivot for a minute. We have another audio drama and a song that we're going to hear, but I there is a lot of conversation in the world at large, but definitely in our community about using AI, the ethical, the ethics of what is it we're actually using when we use it. Folks that trained the pieces and works that were used to train, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you kind of come out on that scale, and how do you feel, um, knowing that someday your work might be used to train another model or another version of this, or the next layer level?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, of course. So, I agree at large that, like with Suno, for example, the big thing is that they took the models and trained on other people's voices without asking. And I think that's a key because I think people should be able to stipulate their permission. Um, if they are okay with their works being used to be trained on. I think Suno definitely should have asked before any of this even started, but they didn't, and so that sort of made things a lot harder, I think, because especially for the AI creators like myself who really do put their everything into every single production, even if it's a short song or whatever it is. We are not just pushing a button, but there are some people who are, and I think that's where we kind of get lumped in with a bad name. And as far as like somebody using my stuff, I think if they asked me, I think I would be more okay with it than if they didn't, you know? And that's the unfortunate thing about these different companies is that they aren't um sometimes in some cases they aren't obtaining the necessary permission and the necessary license to do that.
I'm excuse me. I'm very interested in the arguments about being paid and getting a fair representation for what had been used, et cetera. I can't fathom how that could ever actually be implemented and happen,
Hmm.
but I do think it is a valid conversation. However, on the other side of that same argument, it exists. It's here in the world. It's not going away. We've had conversations as humanity, we've had conversations like this about photography, about digital music, in so many spaces. And then the other side of that argument, which I think is very fair and valid, is almost everything we do that has an electricity component to it at this point has some form of artificial intelligence attached to it, whether it be in the direct correlation or what helped build it or the model that runs it, et cetera, et cetera. And so at this point, I am personally advocating that we continue to have these conversations and we find ways to elevate the artists out there that was used, et cetera, et cetera. And we force the companies to kind of disclose their processes for training, et cetera, et cetera. But
Hmm.
it's in the world, the tools exist now. How do we keep it ethically moving forward? How do we form permission structures for
Hmm.
new stuff? And how do we make sure that, when someone pushes a button and produces something versus hours and hours writing a script, tweaking it back and forth, finding each and every sound effect
Hmm.
that we find a credit structure the way we look at movie credits and instrumental and songwriting credits on albums and such. I do think ethically speaking we can get to a place where um we're honoring all the pieces
Hmm.
of it, and we're also not dogging those that are really finding their creative outlets and their expression and and those that are using it like I am in work tasks on a daily basis and such. I
Yeah.
don't want to feel guilty for running through something I spent 2.5 hours writing and putting it in there and saying, okay, give me the structure, give me the format, tell me where I'm repetitive, show me where an argument might land a little bit better, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
I put 2.5 hours work and I took suggestions. And like you said, I don't always take the suggestions, or sometimes it hallucinates something that does
Yeah.
completely not. But it's a great
It's a
tool.
great
And
helper. Yeah.
yeah, in a conversation like this, I hope will help move the needle for folks. All right, let's talk about the second piece.
Okay. So AJ? Is that the
Yes.
one you're okay? Just wanted to make sure. So yes, it's another love story. So Antoine and Julian. So now we're in modern day France, modern day Paris, and these two people are both married. One to a French wife and one to an English one, or an American one. Sorry. And they are kind of trying to figure out themselves, and of course they've known that they have been gay for a long time as well. In this one, um there is a little bit of a different ending. They actually, I don't want to I guess I can spoil it, but they do actually end up together, but not without having to completely disassemble and rearrange everything and go through some emotional chaos along the way.
All right, Herbie.
Oh, well, I was just making sure you were ready for me, that's all.
Thanks.
On Rue d'Austerlitz, the hour just before dusk had a way of softening everything in Paris. Edges, tempers, truths. The pale curtains breathed in and out with the rhythm of the warm evening breeze, glowing amber in the fading light. Dust hung in the air like tiny, drifting confessions, too light to fall. In the center of that gilded quiet stood Julian. He pressed a cigarette to his lips with the air of someone trying to keep his hand steady, the ember glowing briefly against the dim room. The smoke curled upward, dissolving near the open window. Outside, the murmur of the street rose and fell like the tide, distant, indifferent. Behind him, Antoine watched. He had arrived only minutes earlier, though Julien hadn't turned to greet him. Antoine stood barefoot on the creaking wood floor, shirt forgotten somewhere on the way in, wearing only a dark blazer that hung open over his bare chest. He looked like a man who had rushed out of a life he wasn't sure he wanted back.
Do you ever put it out, or does it just burn itself to death?
Julian didn't answer. He took another slow drag, eyes fixed on the window, on rooftops washed in honeyed light, on anything but the man behind him. Antoine had seen him like this before. Tense jaw, sleeves rolled to the elbow, refusing to look at him because the moment he did, the truth would spill out, uncontrolled. And Julien was nothing if not contained.
You shouldn't be here.
That's never stopped me.
It was true. Antoine crossed rooms, countries, even entire versions of himself when Julien needed him, or when he wished he didn't. And he had come again tonight, just as the sun dipped behind the city, called by something Julien never said aloud. Julien let the cigarette hang between two fingers.
Someone might see you, and that can be a good thing for either of us. People talk.
People will talk everywhere.
Julien's breath caught, a small tremor nearly lost under the whisper of the curtains. He lowered his hand, studying the cigarette as though it were some fragile thing he might crush with a careless thought.
You are making this damn near impossible.
Julien whispered.
I am not trying to make it harder. I am trying to make it real for us.
He stepped closer, until the fading light brushed the line of his collarbone, casting long shadows against the wall. Julien finally turned. The sight of Antoine, bare chest rising and falling, curls mussed, mouth set with stubborn affection, sent something sharp and warm through him.
How did we get here?
Julien asked.
By lying. By pretending we were fine. By staring at each other across dinner tables with our wives and never breathing a word.
A muscle flickered in Julien's cheek, as if the truth had struck him physically. Antoine reached out, not touching him, not yet, just letting his hand hover near Julien's arm, close enough to feel the heat of him.
You left your shirt on the chair.
Julien said quietly, as though that observation alone might anchor him.
And you, sir, left your heart on the table the night I met you. I have been trying to give it back ever since.
Julien's breath shook. The cigarette finally slipped from his fingers, landing soundlessly on the wooden floor. Neither man moved to pick it up. The sun dipped lower, leaving only the amber glow of the room, the hush of the street below, and the weight of everything they had not said. Antoine stepped closer.
Tell me to go, mon cher, and I will.
Julien closed his eyes, but he didn't speak.
So go with me for a minute. I am a very, very big fan of Nora Roberts. I'm a huge fan of Ellen Hildebrand. There are certain authors in that genre that I think excel at what they do. But if someone were to read a chapter to me out of a book, I would probably, with a great deal of accuracy, be able to point to who wrote that, whether it be Nora or Janet Ivanovich or, with pretty good accuracy, because writers have a voice. They have a cadence to their storytelling. I'm so glad you picked both of those pieces, because your storytelling cadence definitely comes through. That is your style. It is recognizable as you, as the
Yeah.
creator.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I do try to make everything my own. I will say this though, just to like for a funny note to try to enlighten the mood here. I hope their apartment didn't burn down because of the cigarette that was left hanging. I mean, my goodness, I mean,
I'm imagining the heat is The heat in that apartment was not coming from what products might have come from the cigarette falling.
No, 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 absolutely not. By the sexy saxophone music, it was definitely not. But oh my gosh, I had such fun writing this one, and I'm still writing plays. This one took kind of the same amount of time. Um, I actually this play, I will be honest about this one. It did come from an image. I actually started with an image of two men. One of them had a blazer on with nothing underneath, and then one of them was dressed, hanging out of the Paris apartment window with a cigarette. So that hints the you know what I mean, the being in the window with the cigarette and that kind of thing, trying to kind of build a story around that because he's contemplating his future and whether this straight marriage is going to work for him really much longer. And so, it's just sometimes smoking is what we do if we have truths to discover or if we're trying to calm down or, whatever the case might be. So,
How much are you learning about yourself in writing and producing these?
oh my goodness. Well, during the 3 years of therapy that I had, I really, really that's when I really started to learn a lot about myself. It was 2022, and I had just gotten hired at this insurance company at Farmers, and um I had just started therapy at the same time, and so we kind of started talking about these different things, from childhood, things that affect us, things that really shape how we attach as adults. What our attachment style, all the attachment style stuff, and kind of some psychology behind some of the things that we do and or some of the ways that our nervous systems receive attachment and all that stuff. And then at the end of 2022, my now husband ended up with a skin cancer diagnosis.
I'm sorry.
And yeah, that was kind of, I mean, luckily it's okay now.
Knocking on wood.
Yeah, my goodness, absolutely. Um, but but that really, I mean, we hadn't even gotten married yet, and I lost my grandpa in the same year, and then I had a like major tooth infection and all kinds of things that just kind of happened at once. And so um it really, I mean, the therapy kind of went on, of course, and until I stopped working, but it really kind of made me think about all these different things. And, you know, one of my friends, one day we were talking about the cancer diagnosis, and she said, "Well, Danielle, is it do you have the cancer or does he?" And I went,
Mm.
"Well, of course, he does." And that question really stopped me in my tracks because I really was like, wow, this is really telling. And before, like when things like this would happen, or well, actually nothing like this has ever happened, but like if somebody was like upset or having some emotional issues or what have you, when I would get involved, I would call myself an empath. Well, I'm an empath. I'm sensitive to people's energy, and while I think that's true, there's also a kind of some negative sides to that really are very difficult. And one of them is, really kind of going inside yourself and really finding out what's really going on and what's underneath all of it. And so I found out that I'm codependent on people, for different, I mean, I think in this society sometimes, codependence is encouraged. Don't do this, you'll make your mom upset. Don't do this. If you do this, you're gonna,
Hmm.
yeah, you're gonna, it's all the if then statements. Well, if you do this, then there's gonna be always some type of like emotional consequences from the other person. you know and so that's really something. I mean, I just really had to realize that this, this bisexuality and, even being, you know, um, in the past, my relationships and trying to have a relationship with a woman really would not work. I mean, especially since the codependency was so strong, my need for approval from my family was so strong that it kind of outweighed everything else, you know. And so that's kind of one of the things, one of the reasons why some of this stuff is kind of emotional for me, as far as kind of creating these characters and these different kind of lost dark stories of like I was never able to really truly express myself or what have you, is because you know it's been difficult to wear the straight mask for the past 20 years. It's been very hard. It's been very hard on other people, the people I tried to be involved with. It's been very difficult for them, too, sometimes, I think, in different ways, of course. So yeah, it's it's kind of intense, but art is supposed, like, I've always said this, art is supposed to tell the truth. Like, for me, if I'm not, and that's kind of like sometimes what I do with it as well, like to address like systemic racism or these different things that they're really uncomfortable sometimes for people to deal with. And so I try to I've tried to kind of make some lighter, fluffier content, which was the like the some of the French love songs like in the beginning, but sometimes we just have to find the way and the outlet to really be able to express ourselves. And sometimes that expression is not always happy, happy, cheerful, you know, stuff.
I saw a comment on someone's, it wasn't yours, on someone's content. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically saying, how can you truly get the artistic release? Don't you feel like it's a glossing over of the full artistic experience? And I listened to, it was a song, and the person had written their own lyrics and created a gorgeous piece around it,
Hmm.
completely through artificial intelligence. I'm not sure if it was Suno or another platform, but the lyrics were all hers, and that was one of the comments. And I've trained myself lately not to react right away,
Yeah.
or
So have
to
I.
feel that reaction, marinate with that reaction, and then come back to it. And if I'm still in the same space 10 minutes later, I'm probably not going to change my mind. So, all right, cool. Let me, and my thought process on that was, well, how do you grade that? How do you, what do your ears have to get hot? Does your heart have to beat at a certain amount, higher than your normal beats per minute? Like, first off, how would you grade that? And secondly,
Oh gosh.
how dismissive? You can ask that question in a different way and really get a conversation. How dismissive to just, you can't possibly get the same feat of creation from this because that's not real art.
Yeah, and I think my response to that would be, well, it's definitely different. I would just say that they're different forms of art, and certainly somebody that spends 30 years or spends so many years or really works hard, they should still definitely do that. And it's kind of like um it's just really kind of like one of those things where like I think people are really almost they just have a terrible fear of AI because it's going to take over the jobs of real unquote artists, and that's just simply, I mean, people can real artists can still be hired and can still can still find work or still be able to do that, and we don't discourage any of that at all. And I don't know, I mean, I guess what I would say as far as the like the grading part, like if if you didn't, like if someone hadn't have come up with that idea, with that story, with that under candlelight, with that, I mean, it AI doesn't just create that stuff on its own. You have to be the driver of the bus. You have to be the one that comes up with these different ideas and and I mean if someone but here's what I've learned too. If somebody doesn't think it's good, just because I've actually had somebody, and he was a very prolific gay writer, okay, and a very nice person. I mean, I'm not saying anything against him at all, but he took one listen to my play, and he said, if it's AI and you told me, since you were honest with me and you disclosed to me that it was AI, I think it's the POS, and I am not listening to you anymore, period. And so I think the grade, I mean, it comes in when, and I think sometimes too, and I'm not sure how you would measure all the individual components, but if somebody doesn't like AI, you can't convince them to like AI. You
Yep.
really can't. It's not going to be, and it's not going to make a damn bit of difference whether you create Beethoven's Fifth and or a symphonic recording, of caliber yourself and sing your vocals yourself and do dance and throw your socks in the air and do all these different things. If it's for some people, if it has because I've always been honest about my work, I always brand it with an AI tag, so people know that. But as soon as people see that, most people who don't like AI will just be like, nope, zero. I mean, and what can you do? I mean, in the beginning, I would get defensive. Well, I mean, and please just listen. Like I was, really kind of hurt by the fact that this person would not listen to my stuff, but there was nothing I could do, and at the end of the day, I told myself, hey, this isn't you can't message him or be bothering him about this. If he doesn't want to listen to it because it's AI, that's ultimately his choice, you know. And so it's hard. I think it's hard, and there's a tendency to really, kind of defend. But I think the less we do that, the better off it is, both for the creator and both for the people who or the person who really may not care for AI. It's kind of like, if you remember back in the 30s, it's kind of like those little piano rolls that were in people's houses,
Yeah,
and
the self-playing and yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And people thought back in the day, oh, pianists are never going to have another job, and why, that's just not fair that they have that music in their home, and I think they should go out and pay to listen to a concert. And everyone, there are people that are still working pianists, it did not, kill the industry like people thought it would. And I think AI is in some ways, I think it's the same. I don't think it's going to, completely bust the artist's chances of being able to get paid. I think what's going to happen is, when people, because now it's required, like on Spotify or Apple Music, or if you publish something like that, it's required that, it's going to show up as AI music. And I think what's going to happen is, people who really appreciate AI music for what it is, and for the creation processes that there are involved in it, or not, right? Then I think people are going to listen to that. But I don't think somebody who listens to Taylor Swift's music, I don't think they're going to stop listening to Taylor Swift because an AI lookalike is out there, or an AI, person that, a voice that may sound, like her. I think people who,
Yeah.
are interested are going to be interested, and people who are not, they're going to stay loyal to the people that they've been, listening to before AI even came out, or even was a thing.
There's a fascinating conversation, and you can get it. It's about an hour and 40 minutes long on Bard between Renee Fleming and Stephen Levitan.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Renee Fleming just recently left the post of helming the
Yes,
Kennedy
at the
Center.
Kennedy Center. Yes.
In part of the conversation, they started talking about AI and stuff, and she said, "Okay, you know what? I have something that I've been working on recently. Somebody gave me a piece that they created inspired by me by my voice, And it's absolutely gorgeous. And now I'm figuring out how to work that into my my one night repertoire show. She used a better word, or
Mm-hmm.
recital, maybe. Whatever, I'm figuring out how to, create the live instrumentation and to make this mine now based upon the person wrote all the lyrics and created this gorgeous instrumentation. That might be a new direction in music. Who is to say, what is this going to look like in 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
But basically the same thing. The bell is rung. You can't unring it. It's here. So, what are some of the great places that this can go to? And in the course of going kind of back and forth, and Stephen took a slightly different, viewpoint on it all. And she's like, well, Mozart knew that throughout the years, hundreds, if not millions of people were going to interpret through. It was not a fixed finite. It has to sound this way every single time because the human instrument singing, or the person playing the violin, et cetera, is bringing their
Mm-hmm.
emotions, their feelings, et cetera. It is never going to sound the same twice. And
Mm-hmm.
that is
Something
something
I
you're
should have
never going
told
to
my
be able.
classical teacher.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something you're never going to be able to replicate with AI. But if AI is a companion to it all and brings out the better, why not?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
The whole conversation is fascinating, but that whole piece of it, I was, at the edge of
Wow.
my seat, like, and he was a little bit more pushback that, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to a place where I would consider this
Mm-hmm.
true art.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And there
but
are
just,
people like that. Yep.
and
And
there
then
are.
you can't convince them. You can't win them over either.
I love though the folks that are giving it a chance, and all of this conversation and some of the stuff that we're doing through Sunday Edition Family of Podcasts. One of the things we're looking towards, we've been having on our Behind the Music some AI pieces, and we're going to create a space that is all for, that is open completely for AI.
Wonderful.
Maybe
That's
once a month.
great.
You said you'd help out along the
Oh, of
way, so I'm
course I
holding
will.
you
Oh
to
my
that.
gosh, I'm always here. Yes,
But
absolutely.
I also want to have these conversations. So first and foremost, thank you so much for, being vulnerable enough and brave enough to share all of that with us.
Of course, of course, and thank you for giving me the chance to.
Where is this all going? Are you just putting this out into the world and whoever receives it receives it? Are you hoping to create a brand? Where is this all going in your mind?
Well, and that's a really good question. Because I really one of the main parts I think that's really difficult for me. I really would like to. So I have a small business. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I have a small business. I know what time it is, so and I'm checking, so I'm trying to kind of talk fast. So Kayla King Productions LLC is a small business. I am my own label. I am my own publisher. And I think that's one of the, if you're, that's this music industry stuff. If you're in the music industry, that's really a smart thing to do. But besides that, I really would like to, I love producing music. I think that's really important. But I really love the creative room that I have with audio dramas, and I really would like to. I mean, I'm always open to helping other people if they have questions, how to make things sound good, or what can I do to make this sound better. My husband happens to be a sound engineer as well, so he definitely has the expertise. There's a certain kind of headphone that if you're mixing this stuff, because I started out with, I mean, not to get on a side tangent, but I started out with a pair of Bose headphones. Now, those are not going to give you the precise
Layering. Yeah.
yeah, stuff
Yeah.
that you need. And so Brian helped me find a good pair of Bear Dynamics. I think the 80 ohm ones, I think he was saying maybe. And so those are always a good resource. They're wired, which is important because you don't want to have any kind of like interference or anything like that. That really saved me because in the beginning everything would distort and it would be horrible because I would mix it on the computer and then go listen to it somewhere else and it would be awful. So if anybody ever mixes anything, Bear Dynamics are really a really good pair of headphones to have. And I'm not they're not my sponsor, I promise. But um but yeah, it's just sorry. Um so I hope I think that the really missing element to all this stuff is the video. I have not unfortunately been able to like edit and produce my own video like from start to finish. I can only upload still images, and I think that kind of really doesn't always speak to the sighted audience that much.
Uh,
And so yeah, so I'm hoping I can find some way to, maybe, I mean, I don't know if like maybe short films or some type of thing, but just really become really good at producing audio drama. And I I know one person who has kind of already maybe asked for like a little mini drama of something that they created, and so I'm excited to work, kind of that way. And of course, having my own label, I mean, if artists ever join it, or I definitely see possibilities, kind of moving that way as well, and really just telling stories. It's so important that we have the ability to be able to express ourselves. So yeah, I mean,
well, the song we have also comes with a story. So let's talk a little bit about that. Herbie, we're gonna get ready to play the song. Go ahead, Danielle.
oh, of course. So sorry. So it's Until We Say No More is this song. It's also the title of my first R&B album in English, which dropped on the 1st of April this year. And Until We Say No More is a kind of a pop, kind of anthemic ballad, maybe a little bit, that really has to do with ripping that mask off, that heteronormative mask off, that, I mean, in this case, what is it's coming from kind of a woman's point of view, but any point of view really, but just really being comfortable with ourselves and really saying no more to the constant mask wearing and people pleasing and codependency.
I grew up learning how to silence the love within. Too young for these chains, but too old to begin again. I have a hard time choosing sides. I guess I should have seen the signs. I was 21 when I found her, but we just weren't breathing the same air. 'Cause we know the path is dark and it leaves an awful scar, coming from childhoods that don't let us express who we are. And it's a hard path to walk, especially when there's chalk on the sidewalk. But we do it every day. We do it every day, until we say no more. 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 From stolen kisses to tying the knot, we fix our face and we act with grace. We believe in love from a young age, but yet we're taught how to hate. It's heartbreaking to find out after all these years that you're just acting on the fear. 'Cause we know the path is dark and it leaves an awful scar,
Herbie, we dropped off. All
Oh,
right. I am sorry about that. There might be a little technical now.
no,
If
no,
you,
no, no. That's how it ends.
that is the, oh, okay.
That's
Awesome.
it.
Gorgeously powerful, especially as we are about to step into Pride Month.
Yes.
So, what are you looking forward to this Pride Month? What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? And please say behind the music, the AI edition.
Yes, of course that. I would love to be able to help with the Behind the Music AI edition. Absolutely. And I can't wait to work with Amethyst. She's done some great stuff for herself as well. So,
Yeah,
definitely looking forward to that. And I have I have a purple wig I wear, and I like to I like to just sometimes I do the purple nails, and I just love to. I mean, last year during Pride Month, I wrote the Monique and Simone album. So I don't know what kinds of things will happen this year, but I definitely know that the dramas are kind of continuing to be a part of the main direction right now. And I'm still there with music, but I have to be honest and say I really, like I said before, I really appreciate the artistic freedom that I get from audio dramas. So you never know, there might be a little surprise audio drama for Pride Month.
awesome, awesome. So, where can people find your stuff? And is there any contact is there an email or a website?
Sure.
What do you want to drop?
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, so my artist name is the Amira McCoy Project. So I'll spell it. It's just THE like the, and then Amira. AM is in Mike, IRRA. And then McCoy, just like it sounds, MCCOY. And again, that's M as in Mike, and then project, just the normal word project. And the podcast is where the audio dramas are, and you can get that anywhere you catch your podcast. It's by the same name, the Amira McCoy Project Audio Drama Podcast. And then all of my music is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you get your music, Deezer, Tidal, or I don't know if it's on Tidal or not. I think so. But and then also I do have a YouTube channel, which is and can be found by again just searching for the Amira McCoy Project. And they're all separate words. And yeah, and of course I have all the usual stuff, Facebook, Facegram,
Scram them up.
Instabook, Instabook, yeah. Yeah, those things. I have all those things as well. And I'm my Facebook, name is Danielle Pudra. So DANIELLE, and then Pudra. P as in Paul, UD as in David, ERER. So if you ever want to message me, I'm always open to receiving messenger comments. And of course, I think on all those apps you can message me, as well. And of course, you can go from there. If people need an email address, that's fine too. But that's probably the best way to, like, the most universal way to find me is going to be to message me, through those avenues.
And if you're catching this on the go, you can always check the show notes. I will be embedding that into the show notes, or you can always email Sunday Edition at anthonycorona.com, and I can forward anything to Danielle. Again, I want to thank you for the vulnerability, and, really bringing your full self to this conversation, and I do hope that it inspires conversations out there, and maybe some folks will reach out to you with collaboration ideas or some of their thoughts on what we spoke about today. So thank you so much. Next week I'm going to be talking with a lady named Shelley, who spent 30 plus years as a court reporter, and we're going to be talking about AI in the use of AI in the workplace, how things are changing, what it's like being a court reporter, a little bit about her personal journey as well. Um, you can always check out the podcasts under the Sunday Edition family by heading over to www.anthonycorona.com. Tomorrow night, if you are catching this on Sunday, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we will be doing Intimate Evening with Michael Byington, going through his life and his obsession, let's call it, with theatrical and music. And he has lived a very interesting life, and he's got a lot of good stories to share. And the last thing I'm going to shout out today is we are about to step into Pride Month, and Blind LGBT Pride International, which I am currently the vice president, has had some growing pains over the last year, but we are back. We are better than ever, and we are about to relaunch Pride Connection, the podcast, so stay tuned for that. But head over to bpi.gay, bpi.gay, exactly how it sounds, and check out who we are now and what we'll be doing for Pride Month. Herbie, as always, thank you so much for taking care of the back end of everything. 2020 The Beacon. David, thank you so much for the space. And you can always listen to this episode and all kinds of past episodes, live content, music, special events on Corona FM, which is also at www.anthonycorona.com. Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and I will be around during the week. You've been listening to Sunday Edition, part of the Sunday Edition family of podcasts and digital media content services. For more information about this show, our other podcasts, lots of fun special events, advocacy, our socials, and our Substacks, please visit www.anthonycorona.com. You can also click on the Corona FM tab for past episodes and lots of fun content. If you'd like to support the work we do, please hit up our tip jars, like and share our content around. We value and appreciate you. If you'd like to send comments or questions for the show, for me, or for any of our guests or panelists, you can always reach us at sundayedition@anthonycorona.com. That's SUNDAYEDITION at ANTHONYCORONA.com. Thank you so much for listening, and let's brunch again together next Sunday.